Coinbase and Circle have joined forces even more officially than they have in the past because Coinbase acquired an equity stake in Circle and have redefined their roles in terms of managing USDC. So a little background on this for you is that Circle and Coinbase jointly managed USDC initially. They had what was a self-governance consortium, and they now are deprecating that sort of third entity. The third entity was called Center, and they're deprecating that because what they say is with growing regulatory clarity, it's no longer needed. So Center will no longer exist as a standalone entity, and instead, Circle will remain the issuer of UCSD and bring all of the governance and responsibility and operations responsibilities for USDC in-house. So it's just like an interesting... we're going to see these sort of waves of consolidation as the industry progresses. And this is, one of those that's kind of meaningful because it's two enormous companies. And the other thing, just to kind of put this in context, is that Circle is the second most popular stablecoin. So the first most popular, ironically, is Tether. The second is USDC, Circle's USDC. And then the third, but much by a significant margin lower, is DAI. DAI is arguably the most stable. I think factually the most stable, but it's also the most sort of transparent because it's code that's managing it, whereas these other ones have companies that are kind of doing things to manage it. Yeah. Let's see. The other things that I just wanted to talk about when it comes to this story is that I think people don't really get why stablecoins matter. I think that they think, oh, well, it's a way for me to be involved in crypto that limits my risk. So it's like I can be involved, but it's going to be a relatively stable asset, theoretically.
You're like using a wallet and doing all these crypto-related things, but it's got $1's value. So it might not go up, but it also won't go down. I'm going to
always add the asterisk of theoretically, especially with what we've seen with some of them. But and then some people will take that a step further and they'll say, well, the importance of stablecoins is for traders because traders need to have easy access to funds to take advantage of opportunities in the market, and moving funds from something like a fiat currency into a cryptocurrency can take days at times. And so you would miss those opportunities. So if you're able to just sort of keep those funds readily available, and then you can participate in those trades. So that's like level 2 in terms of why people think that stablecoins are important. But I would say the real alpha here is that they are important for infrastructure projects.
Oh, yes.
And the thing that people aren't seeing when it comes to that is, so let's say that I want to pay for some bandwidth, or I want to pay for some cloud compute. If I'm paying for that in a non-stable way, and that the token that's affiliated with that service has some sort of wild price swing because it does something crazy, like announce that it's the only marketplace where you can get access to the A100.
For example.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead in stories. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
For example, it does something crazy. Well, then all of a sudden, I think that I'm going to have hours or days of the service, and now I have minutes or seconds. That's a huge problem. And stablecoin payments will help to solve that. And so the necessity for infrastructure to have stable payments so that these services can switch behind the scenes for us, it's not something we're having to do as the users, and we're able to relate to the amount of money in a way that just makes sense to us. That's what stablecoins give us when it comes to infrastructure. That's why they're really important for the future of Web3, ultimately to the average user like you and me.
Yep. I remember I've always theorized that most people like, sure, the crypto nerds will remember, 5 or 6 different values in their mind about different tokens that they're excited about and stuff like that. But
Right,
the vast
yeah.
majority of the public are, as they adopt this stuff, they're going to stick to a single reserve currency. And for a long time, that reserve currency is likely going to be not even Bitcoin necessarily, but a stable coin, because they're used to the value of the dollar. Obviously, like you said, like, they're sacrificing the potential of number go up kind of thing. But they're getting involved in the ecosystem. They're getting themselves access to be able to buy Bitcoin when it dips, or have access to all these various different kind of services and stuff like that, without having to overcomplicate in their mind what they're keeping track of. So at most, they might hold a stable coin and Bitcoin, for the most part.
No, you've argued this for a long time. We had a developer on our team for a long time who was convinced that we should be we should be measuring things in sats. Like,
it
she
wasn't even
was
sats, it was bits, which, who knows, anyone that's watching right now, tell me what a bit is, because it is in fact a measure of Bitcoin, but I have to look it up when, exactly how many, points past the decimal place it is.
And so it's like one of those things that it kind of like generationally, like, kind of helps, it bifurcates, or there's like some sort of spectrum, right? So she was just like so internet native and so young, and she was a developer, and so there was just like all of these things stacking up to the point where she was just like, no, and a gamer, that this like made sense to her, whereas for you and me, like, I want to know what the dollar value is, because that's where my head goes.
To be honest, I think that was her primary argument, that it was actually bits are close to, because of the value of Bitcoin at the time, bits are close to about $1. It's that many decimals away. So a bit is about $1. It was in the dollar kind of range, kind of thing. And so she was trying to solve that problem. Get it close to something that we're used to. If a burrito costs $5, it should cost 2 or 3 bits, or 8 or 9 bits. It shouldn't be 9,000 satoshis. Like, that's something that people, or 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin kind of thing. That's not something people can keep track of. So that's an interesting point. I hadn't really thought about that, whether or not that, just because of how many decimals below the 0 Bitcoin can go, and that we've given names to many of those, if that can stand in for stablecoins in some way.
I was just going to say, so maybe that could work with, maybe that's the bridge, like, stablecoins becomes the bridge to us talking about the units differently than dollars.
Yeah,
we will see.